Jarrad.
Yeah, I'll play the sound. That works.
Play the sound. Let's do it. All right. I'm excited. Jarrad, what's going on?
What's up, man? How are you?
Doing good. So the people asked and they have received. It's been requested for many weeks now that we get on retail's level with their DM60s. And special shout out to Stacy at head office. She did a great job putting that together for us, giving you guys a glimpse on who the speaker is going to be today, who the speaker is going to be next week. And also shout out to Elise, who helped organize the video and make sure that it was up and running. So we are excited to finally have our own little hype video before we get started. Me and Mike Clay, we tried to do it the first one. It was kind of awkward. So now we're a little smoother. Guys, we're really excited today. As you guys kind of see, the title of these webinars, Zoom meetings is Leadership Masterclass. And today you guys are very lucky because you have a speaker who I think is one of the best at teaching leadership, giving people perspective, giving people analogies on how to look at stuff, because at the end of the day, how we look at things is really what our world is. And so Jarrad, who, not only is successful at running an office, Jarrad has been an owner for about 7 years now. He's got 7 owners under his own organization in Verizon, in Ready Refresh, and in Start New. And Jarrad, today his topic is going to be return on your investment, which I think is extremely relevant because we're all investing. We're all investing in our people. We're investing in ourselves. So Jarrad's going to cover that topic today. So please tell your other leaders in the office to hop on. Tell your owner. Make sure they tell the other owners because this is going to be a great topic and we're going to learn a lot today. So Jarrad, before we get started, your background is pretty cool. You grew up in the Bronx. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
you were telling me that a big reason why you were interested in entrepreneurship and trying to make it on your own is because of what you saw your mother go through and what you saw your father and where your background in your family. So can you talk about a little bit about your background of what you were doing before the business and what's sort of motivated you to do this business and be so successful at it?
Yeah. For me, like many of us, especially during this time, I'm a college grad. I graduated in December from West Virginia University, studied business. Kind of took a break from college after I graduated. I worked in West Virginia, and then I came back for the summer. Took my summer vacation. I started in September. One of the biggest things that really motivated me was again seeing my mom. I grew up in a single parent household. My mom was an RN nurse. She's been an RN nurse for the past 30 years. I literally watched her wake up every single day at 5 a.m., come home at 7, 8 p.m., pick me up from after school, never complain, never miss a day of work. And I think that's what really instilled in me where I actually won an award. I didn't get to tell you this, but I won an award from kindergarten to 5th grade for never missing a day. And I got that from, that work ethic from my mom. So I think that's something that's just instilled in me. My dad and our culture, my dad's Nigerian. And, he just instilled this culture of just no nonsense. If you strive, strive to be the best at anything you do. Don't let anybody put their insecurities or, their deficiencies on you and always just be better than the next man or woman. So,
yeah. When people first start in their business, one of the things we ask them is, what's your step 7, right? What's your goal? What do you want to accomplish this for? And I think when a lot of us start, we're young, or maybe some of us aren't, but we're new to the business. So we're not really sure what our goals are. And a lot of people come into our business, but either the step 7 isn't strong enough, or they just don't stick with it long enough to actually see the step 7 come to reality. But you're a guy that has not only accomplished a lot in terms of being an owner, but you're able to do things for different other aspects of your life, whether it be foundations or charities, which I think is one of the coolest parts of our business. Is it's like a vehicle, like you told me, to become successful, so you can use that success in any way you really want to. So can you talk about what you've done with your success in the business and how much it means to you?
Yeah, it means a lot because every single day, I come into my office and I get the opportunity to impact somebody. And, I try to impact one person at a time in my office, whether it's an interview that I have a 30-minute conversation with, whether it's a guy that's been in my office for 5 months, 2 weeks, or a day. That's my main goal. So I think when you strive to, serve others, when it comes to like doing things outside of the office, it's natural, it's organic. So, that's why it really wasn't when I came up with the idea of creating a nonprofit, it was natural to me because I was, I'm always giving to my people. I work for my people. My people don't work for me, so it was easy to do that. When it comes to like helping my family, it's easy to do that because I'm just always thinking about, the next person and try to again use my business as a vehicle to be able to help others. So,
And you have 2 different things that you're kind of working towards. One of them is can you explain them? Because I don't want to mess up the names, but you have 2 different things, 2 different nonprofits and foundations that you've been able to generate and create a lot of profit for.
yeah. So my one nonprofit is called Generations Nigeria. In 2019, we were actually able to raise 19,000. And we went to Nigeria and we rebuilt the soccer field out there. It got the attention of, Under Armour helped us out a lot. Phoenix Rising, which is a MLS soccer team, helped us out a lot. And we were able to give out, we hosted a tournament. We gave out jerseys, soccer balls, and really fix up the field. And the other thing I was able to do, it's less of a foundation, but more just like really just helping out my grandfather. My grandfather owns land in Windsor, and he owned this land, but he never really lived off his land. So what I was able to do with my business knowledge, my marketing skills, and my sales skills, I was able to turn, his land into a business. So we created our own business called Triple J Farm. We're one of, where there's less than 2% of African-American farms in the United States. So we're definitely an anomaly. But most importantly, we're able to, grab the attention of, articles and publications like NPR, Essence Magazine that did stories on us because, we're creating, we're really just educating everybody on, the lack of African-American farmers in this country.
Yeah. Well, that is really, really incredible. Congratulations to you and what you've been able to accomplish. And, Jarrad, I talked to you yesterday and I was kind of asking you, you seem wise beyond your years, right? You seem like you have this perspective on things, which you're going to talk about today, that allows you to sort of always be thinking big picture, long term. And I think a lot of people that come into our business, it's hard for them to think long term. They're really caught up in the day to day and what they have to do, which is obviously important. But it's really tough to get through the negatives if you're only thinking about the short term and you're not really thinking, okay, where can I get to after I overcome these negatives? So for you, where does that come from? You always have really great perspective. You're always top of the charts in terms of sales. And you just seem to be such a great example for your guys on how to look at entrepreneurship. So you didn't come from necessarily an entrepreneurial family, right? Your mom just worked hard. So where do you think your desire to get into entrepreneurship came from? And how do you have such good perspective on your world?
That's a great question, man. I think really comes from knowledge, education of self, and of course, application. These are things that, again, I didn't come out the womb as an entrepreneur. My family wasn't entrepreneurs. I had to read, I had to, look at stats and what's going on. I looked around me amongst my peers and, those kind of things scared me to be a statistic. So I really worked hard at just, educating myself and applying the knowledge and try to just, always just focus to refocus. I'm always looking at, who's doing better. I'm always looking at if that person's doing better, why can't I do the same? And I just try to stay fresh mentally and physically all the time. So I think that's just really what keeps me on my game. And that's how you get the edge in life and in business, just kind of always being on top of your game.
Well, that's great. Well, there's no better person to talk about investments and in terms of how to get a return on that investment. And I think your topic is extremely relevant to everybody right now on this call. We're all looking to build our teams. We're all looking to have a great summer here in 2021 as the pandemic begins to calm down and life starts to creep back to normal. We really want to capitalize on this time of the year. So everyone, please take notes, throw questions into the chat. We want to try to get as much information across to you guys as possible today. And if anybody in your office isn't on, shoot them a text. Tell them, hey, we got to hop on this call. All right, Jarrad, why don't you bring your screen up? The floor is yours.
All right, can you see my screen?
I can see it. Yep.
All right, awesome. So let's get straight into it. So, just like Van said, I came out of college not really knowing what I wanted to do. But the one book that really shaped my mentality was the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. And Robert Kiyosaki talked a lot about, having money work for you versus you working for money. He talked a lot about creating assets, and these assets are there to pay for your liabilities, and these assets are there to pay for your lifestyle. Now, while again reading this book and looking for a career, I also read that there's 4 quadrants to make money, and this will really shape my mentality. And this is what I used as like this North Star to guide me through my career. And the first way to make money is what most people do. They exchange their time for money. And the reason why most people do that is because it's the safest bet and it's guaranteed. If I work X amount of hours, I will make X amount of money. And the only problem with that quadrant is if for whatever reason you can't physically work, you don't make money, i.e. COVID. We have 40 million Americans applying for unemployment insurance because they physically couldn't go back to their job. So a second way you can make money, second quadrant, is having a small business. Now we all know having a small business can be a lucrative opportunity. The thing about running a small business is it takes a lot of capital to start up. And if it doesn't take a lot of capital to start up, another problem you might run into is having somebody that's efficient at the job that maybe you can, and usually the people that are efficient at the job, you have to pay a certain salary. And when you first start up a small business, unfortunately, you might not have that amount of money to be able to pay that person that specific salary. And we all know If you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. So in exchange, you either still have to put up the capital or you have to put up your time to make sure the business is running efficiently, where eventually you can kind of, replace yourself. Now, the third way to make money is investments. Now, we're in a time where everybody's investing, right? You can invest in commodities like gold or energy. You can invest in stocks or cryptocurrencies, real estate, and those are obviously great. And with investing, the reason why people invest is because eventually they want that passive income to take care of their lifestyle. Now, the two things about investing, you either have to have a ton of money in order for you to be able to live off that investment, or it's going to take you have to be really good at investment, or it's going to take a long period of time. So again, 20, 30, 40 years even, where people are actually living off their investments, right? And you have to have a lot of startup capital for that as well. So again, that's going to take time. You got to get really good at it before you actually start doing it. Now, the fourth quadrant is actually the quadrant that made the most sense to me. And again, I use this as like my North Star looking for a career. And that fourth quadrant is business systems. Looking for a business that has duplicatable and replicable systems where you necessarily don't have to physically be there to earn income. Now, Larry says it all the time. He hasn't worked a full 5 days, and God know how, probably longer than me being around and living, right? And that's cool because he's developed these assets to take care of his lifestyle, right? And when you develop business systems, you necessarily don't have to physically be there, and you can create this passive income. So that's what made the most sense to me. And every time someone comes to my office, they make a little bit of money or they're pushing for assistant management or management, they always ask me, Jarrad, what should I invest in? What should I invest in? And 100% of the time, the only thing I tell them to invest in right now is yourself. So let's get into it. So there's a difference between sacrificing and investing. And sacrifice is spending. It's the act to give up something in exchange for something else. And again, a lot of our parents, to raise us, they sacrificed a lot. Or you can look at it as investment. And for me, this training program was an investment. And the investment is the act or process of investing time, money, or effort for a return. So you get your ROI. Now, these are the three things, that we usually, invest in. So we invest in our time. So this business, I learned a long time ago, is a front-end loaded business. We have a lot of responsibilities in the front of our career, but in the back of our career, again, we on the front end of our career, we have a lot of responsibilities and less rights. For most companies, and probably for a lot of our parents, they had more of a back-end loaded business. So as they got older and as they went into the ladder of their career, they had more responsibilities. And how many people can relate, growing up, maybe in high school, and maybe a lot of our parents missed our games because they had to work long hours at the office. And that's kind of like the opposite here. And for us, the average age of retirement for our business is about 40 years old because we put a lot of time in the front of our career, right? And it's also the priorities. Ben mentioned it, as the world starts to open up, this is a big summer for a lot of us in our business, as far as the clients that we've been getting, but it's a big summer for everybody because a lot of people have been, basically cooped up in the house for an entire year. So you got to make that decision. If one of your buddies calls you and say, hey, do you want to go to the beach on a Saturday? You have to look at where you're spending your time. Are you spending your time wisely, maybe going to the beach with your buddies on a Saturday or a Sunday? Or do you want to spend it building your situation so eventually, again, you can see a return on your investment quicker? So that's the question you got to ask yourself when it comes to priorities and the time that you're putting into certain things. Next thing you can invest in is your effort. And by you putting in the extra effort, going the extra mile, you're going to see accelerated growth. You're going to see appreciation from your people, appreciation from your leaders, your guys, even your manager. And with that extra effort, there's no seniority where you can then pass someone by that's been here for a year because you're putting in that extra effort. And based off of that extra effort, you develop these business partnerships, people that rally around you, people that, are motivated by your effort and how much you actually care. So effort is huge. And my favorite quote is, effort's only between you and you. And you get to see a return on that investment through the effort that you put in. And then last, money. Now, no one's here when you first started, had to pay like this membership fee to get into our business. And I love what Van's doing with this leadership masterclass. And people pay top dollar for this type of information. But the coolest part about this business, and then when I really realized what this was, and this was business school. This was the foundation for me and all my businesses. This is an earn while you learn environment. And the fact that we're getting on this call for free, and we're learning this information, it's mind blowing to me. And I always took advantage of that. I always took notes, all the Dallases back in the day. I used to write it in my notebook, and I actually apply that information because it was just free game. And sometimes when you're building a business, you also sometimes have to pay to play. And that's one of my favorite sayings. And you got to charge it to the game, whether it's positive or it's negative. So sometimes there are times where you have to maybe just as a gesture, pay for a lunch, pay for a dinner, pay for a breakfast. Know something about your guy and get them a nice little like trinket or something. Like if they're a big Yankees fan, if they set the pace today, grab them a Yankees pin or a Metro card or a gas card that can help them get to and from work. Just something. And don't count the cost, because that initial investment, that $30, $40, or $50 investment could be your next leader in your team. It could be the guy or girl that's pushing you to get to assistant manager. It could be the guy or girl that you just did that kind gesture to, and that they're going to be a part of your expansion crew. So you never know. And the last is just really knowing real life stats. And just like I said earlier, is one of the things that really pushed me is I knew, I looked up real life stats. I just Googled things, right? I Googled what's the average income for an individual, 31,000. What's the average income from a household? 62,000. The average American, 76% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Like, these things legit scared me. These things frightened me. I didn't want to be a statistic. I didn't want to be average. So I looked at the money that I was earning and looked at it, I was like, all right, I need to get a return. I can't just live life, just working a 9-to-5 job, trying to survive, right? Jay-Z said it best. So I always looked at it like, all right, cool, I got to earn way more. And it's not just monetarily, it's obviously the knowledge and the wisdom that I'm able to pass down.
Hey, Jarrad, could you go back one slide? One of the guys just requested it. The one before that, there we go. And what I recommend, guys, for anybody that wants to remember these slides, take a screenshot as he's going through them. So that way you have it on your phone. And if you're in an office, take a picture. And we're going to send everybody this video after. So anyone that wants to watch it, you guys feel free to do that as well. All right, Jarrad, you can go.
For sure. And when it comes to your investment, there's obviously, Ben talked about a step 7. So everyone has these goals they want to accomplish. And, again, when I was first going through the program as a 22-year-old, 23-year-old kid, I wasn't thinking about starting a nonprofit. I wasn't thinking about starting a farm. It started out with a long-term goal, trying to help my mom, short-term goal, getting into leadership, midterm goal, eventually, getting into a managerial role. So in order for me to actually have like a thought process, say, hey, I'm going to make a return on my investment, I got to have goals. I have to have vision, right? And the importance of goals, it gives you direction for you and your team, and it shows you progress for long-term success. Now, some of us maybe on this call have glasses. I don't wear glasses personally, but if you wear glasses, there's two different, you have two different visions. Some people are nearsighted, and the people that are nearsighted in our business and the leaders that are nearsighted, they focus on the day-to-day. They see the difficult journey, but unfortunately, they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And these individuals and these leaders tend to give up before even reaching that goal. And the solution to this is set up a short-term goal that gives you sight of a closer vision. Almost like having that carrot, that dangling carrot right in front of you. So as you go, you're not worrying about the end result, but you're, again, going through the day-to-day because you're already focused on that day-to-day. And there's other people in this business that are farsighted. And these people see the opportunity. They see the bigger picture right away. You don't have to explain the bigger picture. They understand that. They're focused on the vision of it. But unfortunately, they don't see the track that tends to take the long to reach their goals. So because they don't see the track, it takes longer for them to reach their goals because they're always looking for a shortcut. They're always looking for another way to get there versus just taking the steps. Now, the solution for these types of people is set up day-to-day challenges so you can enjoy the process, so you can enjoy the journey. Now, the last type of vision, of course, is 2020 vision. you see both sides of the spectrum. You see the opportunity, and you also appreciate the difficulty of the journey. And you understand that you need the track to get to the light at the end of the tunnel. And usually these are the managers. And again, these are the people that normally finally see a return on their investment. Now, when it comes to, these goals, everyone has three versions of themselves. There's the past version, there's the present, and there's the future. Now, the past version of yourself is actually the smartest self. This is actually the version of yourself that came up with all the ideas. I wanted to go to the gym, I wanted to lose weight. This is what I'm going to do. I want to, start this business and become a manager. This is what I'm going to do. So they have this version of themselves, have all the ideas. Now, the present version is the workhorse. Doesn't think at all, just works, puts their head down and works. Now, the future version of yourself is there's a version of yourself that gets all the glory, right? They reap all the rewards. And the purpose of the present is to make sure that the past is satisfied with the future. And the reason why people don't see the future, because they forgot who they were in the past. They forgot their past successes. And think about how many things that through your journey of this training program, through life, how many things have happened to you directly or indirectly that challenge your mentality. And you got to think bigger. And for me, I looked at it as like, all right, I'm starting this business. I just don't want to be part of this business to run office, have 20 guys, and make 6 figures. That wasn't for me. I had to think bigger. And I want all you guys to think bigger after this call. And what challenges your mentality throughout the day? What challenges your vision? What gets in the way of you making return on your investment? 25 leaders. If you have 25 leaders on your roster, you can go anywhere. If you have 40 leaders in your roster, you can be on any program. If you have 100 leaders, you'll have an organization. If you have 500 leaders, that's when you can retire about the age of 40. So thinking bigger and thinking about things that challenge your mentality, so obviously you can see that return on your investment. And what goals are usually fueled by passions. And the secret to success is to discipline your life so that you support your deeper purpose / passion while minimizing distractions and detours. Now, there's this myth, and this myth that's going around that people are saying, follow your passion. And I read this book, and this book told me that it was bad advice, and I believed it. And the reason being is because passion is loving what you do, and following your passion is, again, bad advice. And the reason being is there's this theory called the passion hypothesis. And what it is this thought process in people's brain that when they graduate college or when they're looking for a job, the key to occupation happiness is to figure out why you're passionate about X. And then to find the job that matches that passion. So that's the preconceived notion that everybody thinks, that you have to find the job that you're passionate about, find something that you're passionate about, you get your happiness from that, and then match that job with that. And again, it's false. And the science behind passion is specific. Career passions are rare, right? They're super rare. I think 68% of people are actually happy with their job, or are not happy with their job, actually. 68% of people are not happy with their job. So actually finding your career passion is rare. Passions take time. Just because something is your passion, one, doesn't mean that you're good at it, right? So a lot of people take the job so they can pay bills, or they take the career that obviously that's the path to increasing better work, or they have a calling, and that's the work that's important part of their life or their identity. And number 3, passion is the side effect of mastery. Again, it takes time. So if you have a passion, just because you have a passion for rapping doesn't mean you're a good rapper. So these things take time. And again, what happens is you causes like chronic job shifting because you're constantly looking for something to be passionate about. Now, the best advice that I've received is develop a skill set, and that's actually greater than a passion. And don't follow your passion, but let your passion follow you by the skill sets that you develop. So first, start maybe doing something you're uncomfortable with. And then usually that's everybody. If you're retail, if you're B2B, if you're residential, this is something that was totally outside of the box for me. I never met anybody. I've never even thought there were jobs that you go door to door. So it's outside of the box. But when I realized once I realized the skill set that I developed, the communication skills, the analytical skills, the thinking on your feet, the critical thinking skills, right? Learning the 5 steps to a conversation, basically getting anything I want through words, through nonverbals. That's when I knew, all right, this was an important skill set for me to learn. And then I got good at it. Over time, if you do it for a year, if you do it for 8 months, you get really good at it. Then you actually start to love it. Because you're so good, you start to love it, and you're excited to teach others. And then once you decide to go in whatever industry you decide to go in, you're going to be so good they can't ignore you. And that's kind of like my story. I had no sales experience. I sucked at the sales. You can ask someone like Anthony Puglia, and I got really good at it. I worked hard at it. I started to love it. And then I started to use that skill set to my other passions, i.e., helping, my village in Nigeria, or helping my family, or, being involved in sports, whatever it is. I started using that skill set towards my passion. Now, happier people, and again, going back to that stat, 68% of people are not happy with their jobs. The happier people that they found during the study weren't the ones that actually followed their passion, but the ones that got experience, been around just long enough, and they were able to develop and cultivate relationships and partnerships with coworkers. And that's what really, really excited me when it comes to just, adding value. So again, another like little tidbit and quote, chase value, don't chase the things that buy value. And what I mean by that is, so I got 2 bills in my hand. So one's 100 and one's $1, right? And they both cost the same to make. Obviously, one's valued at more, but we spend our whole lives chasing these things because we're taught to chase the things that buy value instead of chasing value. Now, when you chase value, these things start to chase you. And this is meant for you to exchange these things for value. So when you add value to yourself and then you give value, people pay you more money for that. The more you add value, the more someone has to give you. And that's when you become a depositor. That's when you can actually bring something to the table and you're less of a withdrawer. And I had this cool analogy, and going kind of back to, the analogy of assets, right? I'm actually purchasing my first home right now. And as managers, figuratively, we're the bank, right? I'm not saying go to your manager and ask for a loan or anything. And what I mean by that is, in order for you to get a house, in order for you to get a house, if you want a mortgage, you have to show the bank documents. And these documents are pretty simple. You have to show them W-2s, tax returns, pay stubs, right? So that shows your financial situation and if you can afford the mortgage. Same thing that we do, right? We look at your W-2s or your pay stubs, which is your paycheck averages. I know Joy a couple of weeks ago put like a profitability worksheet to see how many sales you guys are doing. You can add up the commissions. You can honestly, you can run your crew as if this is your mini business, where you see if your crew is profitable for the week. You take the average expenses of the office. You're seeing your paycheck averages, your install rates, your cancellation rates, and you're looking at your team as a business. So does your financial statements match up, right? Also, what the bank looks at when you take out a mortgage, they look at your credit history, right? How long have you had credit for? Is your credit good credit or is it bad credit? Have you been on time? Have you been late? And these are the things us as managers, what we look at as well, your credit history. We look at roll call. How many times have you been on time? What's your attendance looking like? Have you been hitting your standards? Are you reliable? And based off of those, if you check off all those boxes, you then add value and, so to speak, you get the mortgage, which is your office. Now, once you get your office, you automatically increase the value. And again, if that is your long-term goal, for me, it wasn't. I know for Ben, it wasn't to get an office, but you right there, then and there, you doubled your now property value, right? And once you're able to duplicate and replicate yourself into somebody else through business systems, you then, again, doubled your property value. Now the client will pay you more not for doing 100 or 200 sales, but they'll pay you more for your office doing 100, and then the guy that you taught, train, and coach to do 100 sales as well. So you actually get more money for that, and then people will pay you more for that value. And that's, so to speak, how to get a return on your investment, Ben.
That's awesome. So I got a lot of notes. I think you covered so many good things that are relevant. And I think that the main thing that I get from listening to you is that you really have a lot of information. You know, like you said you chase knowledge, and you've always been attracted to knowing more. So that way you're more aware of what's going on. And I think what ends up happening to leaders is they get into our business, they come in, maybe they're looking for a job, they start doing sales, and then they get promoted to leadership. But at the end of the day, you know, we're not, you know, people in our business don't get rich just because they're good at sales. The people who become very successful are the ones who are really good at attracting other people and getting people to see things the way they see them. And I think the thing that you do really well is you just have a lot of information, like you know a lot about a lot. And so what advice would you give leaders to sort of maybe change their habits now? Because I think when people go home, maybe they just go on social media, you know, maybe they just watch their show. But I think the difference between people being great recruiters and being great team builders, and then really changing people's perspective, is them having a lot of information that they can share that gives them that kind of look like, I know what I'm talking about. So how would you give advice to a leader right now that's, you know, busy in the field or building their teams, just to be more knowledgeable about the world?
For sure, man. I think it definitely starts with networking. Again, going back to returning your investment and playing off that, you know, your network is your net worth. So even networking with people in the business is great. But also, I network with people outside of the business that were successful in their fields. You know, you'll be surprised. A lot of the same principles, a lot of the same, you know, things that we talk about in our business are applicable to people in other businesses. Waking up early, you know, reading, meditating, working out, you know, eating the right foods, you know, listening to podcasts. You know, those are things that other people that are successful in their fields have done. So it's literally just cheat copy and steal them. So that would be my advice. You know, just, and again, outside of all the things that I talked about, you know, you got to, you know, develop yourself, you know, personally as well. You know, you got to feel it within in order for you to even think about these things. Like it starts with you. You look good, you feel good, you play good. So I think it starts with you for sure. Again, that investment starts with yourself, what you're putting into your body. You know, again, physically, what you're eating, what you're putting, what's the mental food that you're putting in your body. All those things play a part.
Yep. And I know for me, you know, I came from a restaurant background, so bartending, totally different schedule than this. I was going to bed late, waking up late. You know, then I show up here and they're like, hey, you got to be here at this time. You got to, you know, stay until this time. You got to work Saturdays. It was a big like shock to my, you know, we call it like a disruption to normality, right? So what ends up happening is people have to make a choice on whether they're going to change their habits or not, because some of us come in with great habits, and there's a couple weak ones, and others come in where we have a lot of bad habits. And, you know, like they said, you know, old habits die hard. So, you know, it really comes down to that choice of saying, okay, I'm going to change habits to match those of who are successful in front of me. So for you, Jarrad, you came in like many people, you know, right out of college. I'm sure your college lifestyle was a certain way. You know, the friends you had, they lived a certain way. And, you know, maybe they thought you were weird because you were working hard. They thought, you know, you were doing something that was so different, whether they were envious or jealous, or any, you know, thoughts people can have. So how did you get into the right habits when, you know, people your age maybe weren't working as hard and they were just chasing the next party?
That's a great question, and I get that a lot. And I really, because really, what it really stems down to is obviously the hours for sure, but then maybe working that extra day, so that Saturday. And I really had to look at, if I wanted to get out of the field, I had to manage my Friday nights. I think the Friday nights are the hardest to manage because, again, that's the night you get paid. That's probably the night that a lot of your other buddies are going out. And once I really managed, I just focused on manage as many Friday nights as possible where my Saturdays were productive. I didn't want to, you know, I could have been doing anything on a Saturday, whether it's cleaning my house, you know, doing errands, you know, hanging out. So I wanted to make sure my Saturdays count. So I really looked at, you know, my Saturday as the exclamation point to the week, and also the start point to the next week, right? That Saturday usually bled into Sunday. that Sunday bled into Monday, and I usually I was on my break even by Tuesday, right? Because I just, I really took Saturdays seriously, and it took me a while to get that. I'm not, I'm not gonna, come up on this call and say that I automatically had these habits, but once I realized that it was the Saturdays that was really holding me back, I managed my Friday nights. I got it. I had my clothes laid out already. I ate breakfast before I got to the office. I had urgency on a Saturday. And once I started managing my Friday nights, my Saturday became, what really set me up for success and really, drove me into getting promoted Saturdays and Sundays, to be honest with you. So again, it was hard. A lot of my friends that told me I was crazy in the beginning, now they're like, I knew you could do it, Jarrad. So, I appreciate that for sure. But, again, it comes with the territory. If you're doing anything great, again, they say if no one's laughing at your goals, then your goal's not big enough. So if you're not doing something that turns people's head or like make them double take or ask a different question, then you should be in the wrong business. I think you talked about this before, is you kind of got a sense of, I think you said this on Joy's call, you got a sense of because this business was so hard and when people fell off, you never looked at it like, damn, like I can't do this. You thought like, damn, like this means this business is worth it. And that's what I looked at it as well. So if people couldn't show up on a Saturday, I'm like, damn, I'm the one that's showing up on Saturday on time, then it must be worth it because again, I'm going to get the results because I'm seeing the results happen right in front of me based off of the work that I'm putting in on these Saturdays. So that's what really motivated me as well.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of when I was trying out for varsity basketball, and I wasn't, I hit my growth spurt after high school, so I wasn't like a shoe-in to make the team. So I was always really nervous, and I had to do all the little things right to make the team. I had to show up early. I had to, make sure I was at all the open gyms. I had to stay after practice, do the shoot-arounds, and I was always really scared. I was really fear lost of like, I want to make the team. I want to get the jersey, and I want to be on that court. And I remember going through tryouts, and 40 people show up, but every week, less people are there, and it's kind of like a mixed emotion. Like, wow, that I thought those people would make it. I guess they didn't have what it takes, and that just makes it. Well, I guess I'm strong enough, and eventually you make the team. So I always looked at management. That was like that was the team I wanted to make. That was the team I wanted to be on. I wanted the jersey of what it meant to be an owner. And then obviously you get into that position, and now that's where people's careers really start. Is once they get into management, and the opportunities that come with that are huge. And then I kind of looked at the people above me and I was like, I want that jersey too. So it is hard. And, when things are hard, obviously not everyone's going to be able to do it. But it really goes back to what you talked about, Jarrad, which is, focusing on yourself and making yourself the best example, because the people that you recruit on your team, they're really going to follow your lead. And, Jarrad, we've talked about this before, but people ask all the time, hey, how do I make my team better? Well, it starts with you. Because whatever you are is what you're going to attract and what you're going to create in other people, right? So I got a question as well, and I know questions will probably start coming in here, but I think it's easy for people to be excited about investing in themselves when things are going well, right? It's easy to be excited. How did you deal with failure when you've invested in yourself, you've spent all this time working on yourself, and things still don't go well? You lose people, you don't get you thought you'd hit a sales goal, you didn't hit it. And I'm sure this happens to you as an owner as well. How do you handle failure when you've been investing, right? You said charge it to the game, but I think more people struggle a lot with they've invested, and then they don't see that return. So they say, I guess it's never going to come. So how did you handle that going through the training program?
That's a great question as well. I live by the quote, fail early, fail often, but fail forward. And, as long as you're getting better, as long as you learn something from that experience, again, that's where you can take away from it. Now, when it comes to, failing and just getting and trying to get better, I look at, what I look at it, it is delayed gratification. You have to accept that, right? You have to accept that things are not instant. And we live in a time where so many things are instant, right? You put food in the microwave, you get it hot right away. You call an Uber, it'll take 5 minutes to get there. Delivery services are at up 68% right now because everyone wants things now. And you got to understand that it's a process and it does take time. And just because it takes time doesn't mean you can't be aggressive with that. And that's one big thing that I learned from Ken is, understanding that things are going to take time, but be aggressive. So you have to have aggressive patience. And you have to, if something says it's going to take a year, try to figure out how you can do it maybe in 8 months by just you being more aggressive than the next person. Because if you're aggressive than the next person, what's going to happen is you're going to run into the problems earlier. And if you run into the problems earlier, you're going to get better quicker. And if you get better quicker, you can eventually hit your goals. So that's how I looked at it as. So whatever failures I had, I got even more aggressive of getting better. So I expedited the time what it would usually take by just me waiting there and expecting things to happen.
Yep. We got it. And that's great. And I'll say real quick before we get to the question, what always amazed me when I first went to Dallas and I got to see speakers, how polished they were, how well-spoken they were, the topics, I was like, who are these people? Like, where did they come from? And then I found out they came from the field, and I found out they were just regular people. And I'm like, how did they become so polished? How did they become so confident and so knowledgeable? And it goes back to what Jarrad said at the very beginning of the call. He's just a sponge of information. So he really capitalizes when he hears people speak. He's at the meeting, he's taking notes. People, I know there's certain people on this call that are really, really into it. And there's others that might have it playing in the background. And obviously the people that really copy the people in front of them, the best examples, because we have so many in this business that make it the road, it's already paved. You just got to follow it. It allows, you see people go from entry level to leadership to ownership, running calls where they answered an ad and they didn't really know what was going on. And you got to think, how does that happen? Well, it happens like what Jarrad said, by being a really aggressive student, and you get to copy all these great examples in front of you, so you don't have to think of it on your own. So I thought, obviously looking at Jarrad speak today, I'm like, damn, this guy, he was a leader in the field just like you guys, college graduate, didn't know what he was doing, and look at how polished he's become. It's because he's a great student. So we got a question here. Would you say self-regulation plays a big part in investment? So I guess the way we put that is making sure you monetize yourself a little bit, and so you're not over indulging in all these different things.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's self-regulation is important. There's two things to this business: it's self-discipline and self-awareness. And if you can be self-aware of the things you got to work on, and again, just mastering something. Like, people ask me all the time, what can I invest in? What can I invest in? Just master you, master your attitude, master your discipline, master your ability to speak, master your ability to coach, master your ability to recruit. Like, just master you. There's so many different aspects for you to master. Like, the last thing you should be worrying about is investing in something that, again, it might be mindless to you, it might take time, but those are the things that I think you should really focus on versus like trying to, again, spread yourself too thin and doing all these other, other avenues. So yeah, for sure. Self-discipline, self-awareness, and be aware that there's so many different facets you have to master before you actually get it. And I think a lot of people, when they get to leadership, they feel like they arrived. But just like Van said, we all, like, leadership is great and all, but when we recruited you as an owner, we already looked at you as a leader. We just have a qualification that says whether you're like deemed to like take out interviews and train. Now you're, no disrespect, but as a distro, you're like still like the water boy, right? And then when you get to leadership, we'll give you a jersey, but you don't have a name on the jersey yet. You can't even get in the game. And once you get into management, you're still not a starter because there's still other people that are, they've been doing it longer, or they're doing it better. So it's like there's so many things that you have to constantly work at. It's never enough. And that's probably the hardest part about this business is you're constantly on a microscope and constantly getting better at your weaknesses, and your weaknesses are constantly being exposed, and you have to work on those things every single day. There's not one thing that I'm perfect at. I have to work on my weaknesses every single day to eventually make them my strengths.
Yep. Well, just some reminders, guys. One of the things that I think makes Jarrad a great recruiter, and I hope anybody that's on this call, you're looking at this and saying, well, how is this going to help me, right? How is this call going to help me build my team, get to where my goals are? You guys know what the average person in your office makes in a day. You know what you're making going through the training program, building your teams. When you hear that the average entry level rep, we have a lot of college graduates, and there's not enough jobs for these graduates. So people are going to take jobs that are less than what their degree would, necessarily require. The average entry level position, or the average job, is $31,000 a year, right? That's like $600 a week. That's the average job. Then you look at the average household, 62K. Many of you guys on this call are making in between that or higher, right? And you're at the entry level, you're at the lowest part of our business, and you get to move up quickly and build your teams. And I always, when I went into interviews, I had to have a lot of knowledge, like Jarrad's been talking about, of the jobs that are out there, right? What else are people looking for? What jobs, what are they paying? What's the opportunity for growth? So when I'm taking notes on this call today, like what I want to be talking about with my leaders is, are you really aware of the world around you, right? Are you aware of the other jobs that people are taking, whether it be restaurant jobs or, telemarketing jobs? Because there's so many times where people, maybe you're looking to build a team and they say, I'm going to take this other job. And because you can't have an intelligent conversation about how their goals align with those things, it just makes you seem unintelligent. It kind of makes you seem like you're really just in this bubble of the business and you can't relate or discuss other topics, right? So Jarrad, is there like I don't know, like a website you go to for these stats, or is there like, how do you go about finding all this information? Because it seems really valuable.
Yeah. Again, Google. Google's one of my best friends. Google University. I'm subscribed to this thing called Medium, which always gives me like the up to date, like relevant information. Like it's these articles that they send out. It's really relative to the world that we're living in right now. And also, I'm a student of the people that I interview. When I interview people and I don't know about the industry, I ask them a lot of questions. I ask them questions about the industry. After I interview them, I look up the industry. If they had large layoffs, what's the challenges right now in that industry. And these are more than likely like maybe like someone in the restaurant industry. Maybe these are people that we're interviewing, right? People in the airline industry. So I'm reading about this industry so I can then relate to this person as I'm in have an educated conversation, like you said, about that industry, and really just expose the negatives and obviously talk about the pros and how these pros and how their goals can line up with what we do here.
Yeah. So, everybody on this call should be looking at saying, hey, do you know your unemployment percentage in your city, right? Do you know the average income for an entry level position? Getting educated on what is the unemployment sort of, COVID extension, like how long is that lasting in your state? What's the amount? So when you're interviewing people, be like, hey, so why are you looking for a position? Are you still receiving unemployment? And if they say, oh yeah, I'm still on it, be like, so what would motivate you to start working? And kind of get that conversation going so they know that they're sitting on checks, and you can now you can have conversations like, man, how long do you plan on doing that? Is that kind of your goal of just not working? And then you can challenge people and there could be conversations about it. But a lot of people that are interviewing right now, they might just be collecting unemployment and they're looking for jobs. So you have to be very good at actually understanding the world that they're currently in and then the world that they're looking around at, along with our business, right? You can't just sit there and say, what are your goals? You can't just say, what motivates you? What are your weaknesses? You got to have intelligent conversations to recruit people. And there is people out there that are looking for jobs because they're looking for the right opportunity, but they got to have that right conversation with a person that's interviewing them in order to be motivated about that. So, Jarrad, I got so much great information. I know that a lot of people on the call right now, I'm sure did the same. And there's so many notes I have to share with my guys. Is there any last words of advice that you would give to anybody that's listening that might want to take this and apply this to their situation?
Again, the last piece of advice I would say is, again, knowledge is downloaded information, and wisdom is that information passed on. So whatever you do, and how you educate yourself, and however you do that, whether it's through networking, through reading, through listening, through podcasts, pass that information on. The more you pass on that information, actually, is the more that it'll be embedded into your head. You'll be able to kind of like, it'll just be automated. You can kind of repeat this info. And again, you're gonna actually start to like live that, and you're gonna breathe that, and that's how you're gonna exude that. And that's why I'm so confident in my ability. That's why I'm so I wasn't out the womb confident, but I'm confident in what I'm doing because I got good at it, right? I'm confident in what I'm doing because I was able to show I can teach others how to do it. I'm confident in what I'm doing is because I have Fortune 100 clients paying me more money to extend and expand their business. So that confidence comes with time, but it starts with, again, the information that you download and then pass off, because other people start applying that as well. And you gain that confidence over time.
Yeah. Well, Jarrad, we really appreciate you taking the time to put all those slides together and give us all that information. Guys, every week you guys are, privy to hearing the best of the best of our business speak and give you guys information. Next week, we have Helen is going to be speaking at 8 a.m. on the West Coast, obviously 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern time. So please, guys, spread the word. We're really excited about these calls. And Jarrad, you crushed it today. I can't wait to talk to my leaders this morning. Thank you so much for taking the time. Everybody have a great rest of your week.
Dan, thanks for having me, man.